where your yard is someone else's campground. 911 calls are answered slower than airline customer service, and the governor looks like a diehard villain.
Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear California's in a state of turmoil. And I ask my fellow Angelinos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen?
When Greg Gutfeld's razor-sharp sarcasm meets Mel Gibson's no-holds-barred intensity, you don't get a debate, you get political detonation. It's part Hollywood action scene, part late-night beatdown with Gavin Newsom squarely in the blast zone. His slick speeches and magazine cover hair don't stand a chance against the barrage of cutting humor and unflinching truth. This isn't just a roast, it's a cinematic takedown, peeling back the polished veneer to expose the fragile framework of a leader fresh out of hiding spots.
Why do I keep bringing up Gavin? Well, other than my respect for his work in American Psycho, he's starting to distance himself from his party's worst ideas. Newsom, a guy who hates fossil fuels but could still bring down the price of gas by wringing out his hair, once proclaimed that his state would be a sanctuary to all who...
More of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate? It's time to take back our community and our state and put the power and the privilege in the hands of competent leaders whose goals are to protect us and the way of life this nation was founded upon and promises to offer.
Before we dive in, go ahead and smash that like button and hit subscribe. You're not going to want to miss this. Gavin Newsom has spent so much time buffing his public image, it's like he's prepping for a Netflix docuseries titled The Art of Failing Up. He's less a politician and more a life-sized campaign poster. Smooth hair, perfect teeth, that ever-present smug grin like a Ken doll redesigned by a committee obsessed with style points but completely allergic to actual results.
I can make all kinds of horrible theories up in my head, conspiracy theories and everything else, but it just seemed a little convenient that there was no water and and that the wind conditions were right and that there are people ready and willing and able to start fires. And are they commissioned to do so, or are they just acting on their own volition? I don't know. But they seem pretty well equipped, some of these people that they're catching.
A lot of questions. A lot of questions, Mel. Mel, a message tonight.
Yeah, you know, I'll sift through the remains of my place and see if I can find any clues for you.
Greg Gutfeld and Mel Gibson don't just see through the act. They toss it into a wood chipper and hang the remains on the wall like a political hunting trophy. Strip away the tailored suit and the self-righteous press conferences, and you're not looking at a visionary leader. You're staring at a political influencer with all the steadiness of a weather vane in a hurricane, spinning whichever way the gusts of public opinion blow.
When a far-left Dem runs for national office, he acts like a Republican. This is where the left is really pro-trans. Suddenly, they grow balls.
Gutfeld swoops in with the precision of a stand-up comic who's watched this same tired routine 100 times and still manages to find fresh angles to roast it. He jabs that Newsom's California isn't the Golden State, it's the clearance rack at a going-out-of-business sale. The issues that have been rotting for years, still there. The promises to fix them, still floating around like a smog cloud over Los Angeles. Homelessness, up, crime up, taxes up. The only thing going down is the state's quality of life.
Destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate?
He's absolutely correct.
I loved every moment of that, and I need to do that now too. I want to be on your show, but with my arms crossed and very, very serious. I wonder where he filmed that, because he wasn't in his own house, because his house burned down. This is personal with Mel, and it should be personal to everybody in law.
The only thing dropping faster than California's quality of life is the number of people who can afford to stay there without auctioning off a kidney. Gutfeld paints it in high definition, a state that should be a global powerhouse, reduced to a bloated political lab experiment where common sense is DOA. Then Mel Gibson storms into the roast with the force of a man who's spent decades battling Hollywood hypocrisy and his own demons and isn't here for polite banter. Subtlety, not in his vocabulary. He goes straight for the jugular, calling out how Newsom struts around like a world-saving hero while his policies turn California into a cautionary tale on steroids. The streets are lined with tents, businesses are fleeing faster than booking one-way tickets to Texas, and regulations are so suffocating you half expect avocado toast to come with a luxury tax. This isn't leadership, it's a live-action disaster flick. with Newsom doubling as both the director and the pyrotechnics guy, gleefully setting off explosions in every corner of the state. California doesn't need a motivational speaker in a tailored suit. It needs someone who understands that leadership is more than holding press conferences against Instagram-worthy backdrops. And as Gutfeld drives home, Newsom's obsession with his personal brand has backfired because the brand is tanking.
I think there's about 100 other reasons too.
Well, it's not his words when he speaks.
Yeah.
You have to watch him closely. And some genius decided not to film him any lower than the shoulder.
Yes, did you? Yes.
So what did he do?
You couldn't see the hands.
No, but he sent Morse code.
Yes.
Go back and watch it. Look at the blinking. Blink, look. Meet me at the house. Like, he's blinking. He's sending. I'm getting there. Hey, just so you know, I'm not wearing pants.
Gibson leans into full-blown theatrics, painting Newsom as the kind of guy who'd stand on the deck of a burning ship, smiling for the cameras and insisting everything's fine because the flames make for great view. He mocks the governor's climate change crusader act, pointing out the absurdity of a man who claims to lead the environmental charge, while presiding over an energy grid that collapses at the first sign of a heat wave. Rolling blackouts in one of the most technologically advanced regions on Earth are, in Gibson's words, a plot twist so bad even Hollywood wouldn't buy it. From there, the roast turns into a two-man wrecking crew. Gutfeld and Gibson tag-team the absurdity of Newsom's presidential ambitions like a pair of political demolition experts. Gibson imagines him rolling into Iowa, sleeves dramatically rolled up, talking about prosperity while farmers discreetly Google, "Why is California so bad now?" They shred the notion that Newsom's failures are just bad luck. Gutfeld makes it plain. Newsom has perfected the political sleight of hand-blaming circumstances for every disaster while eagerly taking credit for anything that looks even.
Rogan's podcast, when I guess you learned that your home had been lost.
Well, I didn't learn it was lost. I knew the neighborhood was on fire, then I was in the path, so I was a little tense while I talked to Joe, but he's a guy that can put you at your ease fairly well, so I was doing okay. And I knew that
Mel,
my family was safe and out of harm's way.
Were you able to get possessions that, of course, are really immaterial when you have your family, but I've been to your house. It was an incredible home, beautiful home. But were you able to get anything out of your house?
Not much. A few necessary things. You know, my son I said, just go and grab this and this and this. And he grabbed like 3 things and took off. And then, you know.
Doesn't chalk it up to mere calls it willful blindness. The kind where you can watch entire cities sink under crime and still pat yourself on the back because you held a press conference about reform. By the midpoint, the roast has morphed into a demolition derby of bad policy and Olympic-level self-delusion. Newsom's greatest hits and hypocrisy, like telling Californians to tighten their belts while he's dining maskless at one of the state's most exclusive restaurants, get roasted so savagely you half expect the heat to power California's failing energy grid. Gutfeld marvels at the sheer gall it takes to preach unity and responsibility, while living like the rules are just for the little people. Gibson drives the point home with a Hollywood analogy. It's like a director demanding actors work for scale while he pockets the entire production budget. Then he twists the knife, dubbing it the California Exodus, the true story of how sunshine and beaches still lose to functioning infrastructure and rent that doesn't require a lottery win. The image of moving trucks clogging the highways becomes the perfect closing shot for Newsom's Reina. Mass migration framed by palm trees and broken
Gavin ponders why Dems lost.
We lost. We lost the popular vote and we lost the electoral vote. We got.
Kennedy, I think the answer is yes.
Was it because of Israel? Yes. Interest rates? Yes. Too woke? Yes. It's like every bad policy that trickled up to the White House during the Biden administration started in California. That state is responsible for the worst politicians in modern history.
They don't let the economy
and he is
off
at the top of the list
either.
And there are some
Gutfeld
ignoramuses
torches California's sky-high taxes, calling them a ransom fee for the privilege of swerving around potholes big enough to host fishing trips. Gibson piles on, saying the regulatory overreach is so absurd you'd probably need a permit just to complain about the permits. It's the kind of bureaucratic knot that sends innovation packing for saner pastures. The picture they paint is grim business owners barricading their shops like it's downtown Baghdad while the governor pats himself on the back for progress. Then comes the environmental hypocrisy. Newsom's green energy sermons get dismantled like bad IKEA furniture. Gutfeld skewers the irony of pushing electric cars in a state that can't even keep the lights on. Gibson, with a dry laugh, imagines a future headline: California leads nation in renewable excuses. By the end, the roast has gone full scorched earth. Gutfeld compares Newsom's career to a bad movie sequel, predictable, overstuffed, and kept alive only because the lead happens to look.
He's given a lot more credibility because his son is a firefighter out there. His son is fighting these fires, so he does have some inside information and some intel. But I do believe that the majority of people believe that this is on the government. According to Fox News, Gavin Newsom cut funding for wildlife and forest resilience by more than $1 million just months before these wildfires. Mayor Karen Bass initially tried to cut from the LA Fire Department's budget $23 million in 2024, but settled for $17.6 million.
Messes it up with Hollywood flair. If California under Newsom were a movie, it'd be a box office bomb, beautifully shot, completely unwatchable. Critics, not in agreement. Just when it seems they've covered every disaster, they pivot back to his presidential ambitions. Gutfeld warns that shipping California's problems to the rest of America would be like franchising a failing restaurant. Gibson grins at the thought of Newsom on a national debate stage, insisting California is thriving while the B-roll screams the opposite. The roast doesn't end so much as pause. Both know this saga's far from over. Newsom's political gifts weren't lightning bolts or divine wisdom, but photo ops and word salads so leafy you could plate them at a San Francisco vegan brunch. He's the kind of leader who can talk for an hour about equity, sustainability, and innovation without touching the fact that Californians pay more for electricity than the GDP of a small nation, and somehow the people are expected to feel grateful for the enlightenment.
A jury, he's sorry he robbed 25 banks when he's just sorry he got caught on the 26th. Because this isn't some spontaneous crisis. It's a man-made disaster like Chernobyl or Fox.
Buying the fairy tale, they saw through the act. Newsom wasn't some master architect of progress, he was California's overpaid motivational speaker, except his came with rolling blackouts and a stampede of businesses bolting faster than he could stage his next press conference. The state didn't just lose companies, it bled residents, fleeing like contestants on a reality show called Escape from Newsom's California. Somehow, he could take a paradise with perfect weather, vast resources, and a world-class economy, and make it feel like the final level of a glitchy, poorly designed video game, endless obstacles, no clear path to victory. Mel Gibson went in on the Hollywood hypocrisy Newsom thrived on, where environmental leadership meant curating Instagram-ready backdrops instead of actual solutions. The mission wasn't to fix California, it was to make sure the lighting was perfect when he pretended to. Greg naturally relished skewering Newsom's obsession with bans and restrictions. Plastic straws, gone gas-powered lawnmowers, history, single-use plastic.
That Mel Gibson says what he says there, and he's correct on so many things as far as the management of wildfires. Gavin Newsom's approval on the handling of the wildfires is only 30%.
Wow.
Gavin Newsom announced that he has a podcast that he's about to launch. When you have a finely tuned machine like California is right now, where you have the highest poverty rate in the country, highest taxes in the country, you have 10 cities that have their own zip codes, and you have fire hydrants and reservoirs that don't have water in it, this is justified. And Gavin Newsom, remember, just last year we were talking about, will he be the Democratic nominee? Then you ask Californians. 7 in 10 Californians right now say that Gavin Newsom should not run for president.
Forbidden. Meanwhile, homelessness soared, crime ticked upward, and Californians paid some of the highest taxes in the nation. Newsom had turned the state into a place where you couldn't get a plastic spoon without a permit. But you could be robbed in broad daylight, and the thief might stroll off grinning. No bail required. It was governance as a masterclass in misplaced priorities, where optics trumped outcomes, and PR campaigns stood in for actual solutions. The real trick, selling himself as a beacon of progress while presiding over an exodus. Families packed for Texas, Arizona, Florida, anywhere with lower taxes, cheaper housing, and fewer bureaucratic hoops. Yet Newsom acted as if this was proof the rest of the country needed to catch up to his brilliance. He was the kind of politician who could watch half the theater empty out mid-performance and still take a bow for a sold-out show. Mel dug even deeper into the Hollywood
ocean and his hair full of lotion. True, Gavin's views may be idiotic, but his hands moves, well, they're hypnotic. California Governor Newsom's new podcast is out. It's available wherever fine hair care products are sold. And we couldn't help but notice an unintended delight, his unique.
Greg couldn't resist ripping into Newsom's obsession with bans and rules. Plastic straws, history, gas-powered lawnmowers, gone, single-use plastics, forbidden. Meanwhile, homelessness was exploding, crime was climbing, and taxes ranked among the nation's highest. California had become a place where you needed a government permit to grab a plastic spoon. But a thief could mug you in broad daylight and stroll away grinning. No bail required. It was a masterclass in priorities, style over substance, PR campaigns over real governance. And somehow, Newsom managed to sell himself as a beacon of progress while running a state people were desperate to escape. Families were fleeing to Texas, Arizona, Florida, anywhere with lower taxes and livable housing. Yet he carried on like the kind of politician who could watch half the audience walk out and still call the show a smash hit.
In 19, I think Newsom said, I'm going to take care of the forests and maintain the forests and do all that kind of stuff. He didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything. And then on top of that, they cut the water off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's all funny. And then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like the place is just on fire.
Well, the whole state is just so...
Dug into the Hollywood parallels. Newsom's political career looked like a movie with stunning cinematography but a script that made no sense. The visuals were flawless tailored suits, slick hair, perfect backdrops. The story, a total mess. California's housing crisis was blamed on everything except the policies that caused it. Failing schools got ignored in favor of flashy climate initiatives that sounded impressive but rarely produced results. It was like a director's cut nobody asked for, with an audience expected to clap anyway. Greg chimed in. Newsom's leadership was like a fancy restaurant serving tiny, artfully plated dishes, gorgeous to look at, expensive, and leaving you starving. Californians didn't need symbolism, they needed solutions. And yet, Newsom stacked restrictions like he was auditioning for the role of America's...
What exactly is he trying to say here, huh? Is it a mysterious form of sign language for morons? Is he conveying some secret code to terrorists? Is he signaling the Los Angeles Angels to steal third base? But I'm willing to bet that former Californians recognize those hand signals. They're the motions you make to back up a U-Haul as you flee that failed state and head to Texas.
Kids were locked out of classrooms. Residents were told to hunker down while Newsom dined maskless at an exclusive, high-end restaurant, probably spending more on one meal than some Californians paid for rent. It was the ultimate not-for-me moment. The perfect snapshot of his tenure. Mel didn't hold back. Elite arrogance wrapped in political theater. Newsom's California wasn't about lifting people up, it was about crafting an image that kept him in the national spotlight. He wasn't governing, he was auditioning. And the scariest part? He seemed convinced he was killing it. He'd brag about environmental leadership while wildfires raged, displacing thousands and choking the state with smoke thicker than a Vegas casino. It was as if he thought talking about progress long enough would make reality finally show up.
Absolutely no adequate excuse the governor or mayor can make for this gross mismanagement and failure to preemptively deal with what they knew was coming. Newsom, since he's been in, whatever you call it, office, has brought us nothing but rampant crime, acute homelessness, horrendous inflation. He's made it untenable for people to make it.
Despite all the chaos, Newsom kept selling himself as the future of American politics. Greg and Mel weren't buying it. They saw a man so obsessed with his own narrative that he couldn't or wouldn't face the consequences of his actions. California under Newsom wasn't a lab for innovation, it was a cautionary tale dressed up as a success story. The roast hit full throttle as they painted him as a leader, whose crowning achievement was convincing people that style equaled substance. Newsom could walk into a room full